And let's have a look whether we are online yet. Okay, perfect. So I think we can, I hope our audience can see us and can hear us. If somebody can put some note in the chat about whether they can hear or see us or both, that will be very, very nice of you. Yeah, perfect. So yeah, thank you, Max. So you can see and hear us. It means that we are good to start. We have 1 more minute. We can wait for some more people to attend. It's our first experience with live streaming on YouTube. So if we have any like small latency issues or anything, please forgive us. And we are going to have this recorded and all your questions. So whatever is in the live chat, it will be also shown in the recording. So you can ask any questions on the way, and there will be also a question and answer time at the end of the stream. So yeah, you're very, very welcome to chat and to ask your questions. And I'm happy to present you David San Filippo from Perficient, who is going to share with us his wisdom about Sitecore search and Sitecore personalized combination and overall composing personalized experiences with Sitecore search and Sitecore personalized. So David, you have the floor. I will make the presentation full screen.
Thank you, Daria. All right, so before we begin, a little bit about myself. I'm a 4-time Sitecore MVP. I've also, as of this year, I've been a regular CMS Wire contributor on Composable. And we'll get to it a little bit later, but my last CMS Wire article was very poignant for today's session. I also co-organized with Josh Hover the Central Florida Sitecore User Group. I'm a principal at Perficient. I lead our practice, so I am in the weeds with all of Sitecore's composable solutions. So definitely looking to help whoever needs help. So I wanted to keep the slides a little light and really get into the demos, but I did want to start with a brief discussion about composable and why to look for opportunities like this to combine Sitecore's products and the value that you can get. And then before we actually get into the products and the tools, I wanted to give a high-level architectural overview of both Sitecore Personalize and CDP, as well as Sitecore Search, just so you have the context of what those capabilities are, so you could start to see how they plug together. And then again, most of the session today is going to be demos. So this is actually a Sitecore slide, but it's one that I like a lot. I mean, this is a quote from Gartner. And really, I think too often, composable turns into just a marketing term, but there's a lot of value out of it, right? It's an enterprise architecture that is proven effective. It's effective because we're actually able to move faster. Sorry, just changing the slides. And not only you move faster, you get a lot more value by being able to combine capabilities. If you think about your DXP architecture, you're rarely going to find a solution that doesn't require you to integrate with multiple solutions to really bring the experiences you want to your visitors and to your customers. And even in the Sitecore realm, your chances are you're not just using Sitecore tools. And you need more than just a CMS. You're going to need search capabilities. You're going to need personalization capabilities. You're going to need digital asset management. It became so clear back in October, Sitecore announced XM Cloud Plus to actually package a bunch of these things. And by combining them, you get better experiences, and you also get more value out of those investments. So although we can really look at anything and try to figure out the best way to combine it, today I'm really just going to focus in on Sitecore Personalize, to some extent Sitecore CDP, but Sitecore Search as well. So I did mention I write articles for CMS Wire, and I actually wrote one. I tried to be a little agnostic when I write for CMS Wire, not pushing specific products, but I do mention some of the stuff I'm going to show you today, and the integration of Sitecore Search and Sitecore Personalize. But I think this technique and this approach, like no matter what tools you're using, combining them adds a lot of value, right? So if you think about some of the challenges with personalization, right? A lot of times you go and figure out your segments, you figure out your personas, and then you figure out the data you need in your CDP to go target them. But then you have to write a lot of content to address what they need in those moments. And then you have to maintain that content. And if you think with large personalization websites like Amazon, they don't create custom content for all that. They actually use search to really drive the kind of content that will actually help them with conversions. And it doesn't have to be e-commerce. You don't have to have a product catalog to make use of this. You can actually use the content you already have to effectively do that. And the other cool thing about combining these two technologies is you can really leverage both the data you have about your customers in your CDP, the segmentation issues and everything else you have there with the intelligent search capabilities of your search platform. A lot of these things do support, like Sitecore Search, support personalization. Some of them have AI capabilities. They look for lookalike audiences. So, but if you think about that, you're kind of using the data in your CDP to craft the right query and using your search engine to drive the best results that will actually help drive your visitors to conversion. So this is a really effective way to combine these two technologies to drive a lot of value. All right, so I did want to give a high-level overview of Sitecore Personalize and CDP, and then we're going to do search on the next slide. So Sitecore CDP and Personalize are really part of the same platform. As you may know, they both came over with one of the acquisitions. This one was Boxever. And although you can purchase them separately, there's a lot of value in having them together. So Personalize really focuses as an experimentation engine across your entire organization. So if you're used to Sitecore and XP, it was always great from a web channel perspective, but it was a lot of work to try to integrate that into other channels. Out the gate, Sitecore Personalize is meant to be integrated into multiple channels, right? It gives you that web template that leverages JavaScript to inject experiences onto your page, but it also supports triggered experiences via webhooks or APIs. So if you have a mobile app or a call center and you want to call in to get customized content from it, you're able to go do that. But really, the biggest capability of Sitecore Personalize, at least in my opinion, is the powerful decision engine. This really gives you complete control to leverage and activate the data that you have and use it to drive some of the experiences. And we're going to spend some time using decisioning to plug into Sitecore Search to generate or to leverage some of the content recommendations coming out of that. On the bottom, you see Sitecore CDP. This is our hub for getting all the data into one place. So it has multiple types of APIs, as batch APIs, interactive APIs, streaming APIs for getting data from your CRMs, your ERPs, or your backend system so you can get that single view of the customer. It also has the segmentation engine and the ability to sync those segments into external systems. So if you want to target those same audiences in Facebook and Google with ads for retargeting, you're able to use it in that mechanism. So that at the 10,000 foot view is CDP and Personalize. So Sitecore Search is the other one. It's a single product, so it's a little bit simpler. It's built, it exposes a set of solid REST APIs, and we're actually going to show you how easy it is to execute them. They actually have some good tooling within the Sitecore search console. And more recently, they put together a pretty robust UI library in React that you could leverage in your projects. But under that, that's all built really on top of the sources and extractors, which are able to use different crawler types to extract and index the data into a unified index to make it available for search. We're not going to spend too much time looking at that. Then we have search experience configuration, which is where you can configure what the experience is going to look like, what the boosting rules are, what the bury rules are, how you want to display it, and we will touch that a little bit. But it also provides search analytics as well as personalization and content recommendations. Now, something you should know about Sitecore Search is it has its own tracking API. So you're going to want to make sure you're either leveraging the proper UA libraries, which do that tracking automatically, or you're raising the proper events so that Sitecore Search understands what's happening. You can use that data about what people are clicking to personalize the results. All right, so here's my demo plan. I'm going to start with Sitecore Search. I'm going to show you a little bit about how widgets work and how you can control the boosting and the burying that I mentioned. I want to show you the API Explorer. You may see some of my keys, which just mean I'm going to have to go delete them later. Then I'm going to get into Sitecore Personalize. I'm going to show you a very simple walkthrough of how you could use it. I'll create a connection, a simple decision model, and simple web experience. But then I want to talk about more complex decision models. I've actually built a tool that I could show you for modeling more complex decisions, and I have a demo that I put together using my instance of Sitecore Search and which indexes the content on Perficient.com and show you how that could work. So I'll kind of show you end to end how that all works. All right. All right. So we're going to start with Sitecore Search. When you log into Sitecore Search, you have a menu navigation on the left. I'm going to spend a lot of time in the developer resources section, but first, so I mean, there's a lot to it. There was actually a separate Sitecore learning tips and tricks just on Sitecore Search that if you really are interested, go take a look at. One of my colleagues, Eric Sanner, also wrote a very detailed series of blog posts on Sitecore Search on Perficient's blogs that's definitely worth a read. I'm not going to cover every aspect of it. Like, to me, it's about how do I get the content recommendations from Sitecore Search into Sitecore Personalize, right? I mean, there's lots of things you could do to kind of customize the query, and we'll talk about that in a second. But Sitecore Search also enables you to kind of define the rules around how the results get boosted and displayed to users. And that's actually done through widgets, which you may think is more UI driven. But if you look at the widgets have an ID, and those are the same IDs that you pass in your React component, so it knows how to call and get the proper results. So you actually can come in here and create your own widget and just reference that RFK ID to decide which configuration of search parameters you want to go get. And just to show you, like if I go in here and I add a rule, I have all sorts of settings. If I want to like pin something to the first, second, or third result, which, like, if I wanted to hard code a result to always be first coming from my personalization thing, that's something I can do. I can set up different boost rules based on attributes, bury rules, and all sorts of other settings. So there's lots of configuration here, but this gives you some control over what results are actually returned by the API, so that when you build your query, you get you get what you're expecting, and then even after you go live with it, you can then come and tune this and then republish it and adjust the results that you're seeing. All right. And just to give you a little overview of what I actually have. So I mean, this is a sandbox environment. This is actually just indexing all the content in Perficient.com. We haven't even written a number of extractors. Like, one of the to-dos would be to add like an image field here, and that would be helpful in giving me something to bind to make even more good-looking experiences there. But what you're going to want to do before you get into Sitecore Personalize is really go into the Developer Resources tab. It gives you a number of API keys, and you probably should create a custom API key just for Sitecore Personalize, just to control access to it that way. And it doesn't show it here, but it will show it when I go into the into Sitecore Personalize to set up that connection. But even better, this API Explorer is really where you're gonna be able to tune your query. So page doesn't really matter, because what that's really doing is helping you select the widget, and that's the ID of that. So if I change that to a different thing, I would get the results and the boost rules associated with it. I do want to make sure I have at least a country language, and then let's do a query. And I don't know, artificial intelligence is popular. So what you're going to do here is click build. Oh no. And I did test this before, so let me try that again. Let's just do test for now. Let's see. There we go. And you know what we could do is we could just change this to, I don't know why that didn't work before, but we'll just edit it here. And when intelligence, if I spell it correctly, if I don't mess up the JSON, you can change this to specify a different widget ID. The other thing we probably want to do is do a limit. And let me rebuild that again. Yeah. And the reason we want to do that is we don't necessarily want to have 10 results, or we at least want to parameterize it so that's something that we can return. If we run it, we get back the results and we can see the JSON that we expect. So this is a really good way of kind of testing out the queries that we're going to want to call from Sitecore Personalize, and also so we can see the data that we get. So, and this JSON itself that you need to pass to it is exactly what you have to configure in Sitecore Personalize. So let's go into Sitecore Personalize, and the first thing we're going to want to do is set up a connection. So when you come to Personalize, connections are under the Developer Center, connections. And you can see I've actually set up a number of these already. And when you create a connection, you need to create it as an AI connection if you want to parameterize it. So if you want to be able to turn some of those JSON values into parameters, and I'll show you how that works, it needs to be an AI connection. The other type only works if you're just hard coding everything. This was kind of an evolution, because first I did it without the limit and I was getting 10 results, and I didn't want to filter some of the results in the web experience. So I created ones that had a limit. And you notice some of these have, say, with user context or without user context. And this is actually pretty interesting, because you can call that API with a specific user in mind, which is what you're going to want to do in the real world, right? I don't have a fully functional site to test this against, so I don't have a user ID, so I wanted to create one without it, so you get back generic results. But in the real world, you're probably going to want to use that and pass that value from the cookie, so that it's getting results not just in general, but for that specific user in that specific context. So let's take a look at this guy. And I've already preset this up. You'll need to get your own endpoint. And again, I'm probably going to delete the key, so you don't try to do this on your own. But you look at the documentation; it's pretty clear on what the parameters need to be. But in the end, you have this request object, and this was just a copy paste from the API builder. And if we look down here, we can see there's a couple of things. This actually has the user context. So we just have that being passed as a parameter. We have the limit being passed as a parameter, and the query being passed as a parameter. And only because I don't have, actually, it may have it pre-done from the last time I did this. Yes, so I did actually generate one the last time I do it. And when we test now, it's going to allow me to specify the different things. So we can go generative AI. Let's see what that does and run the test. And if we scroll down, we'll actually see the results. So that means if we're able to call this connection from a decision model, we're able to take this content and put it right into the context of any experience that we're building. And we could leverage this, loop through this, and do what we need. So once you set up your connection, really the next step is to build that decision model. So I'm going to start with the simple one. So I have a simple search model. And you can see it took me 4 tries to get this right. But let's get into it. And I actually set this up just to be simple. I didn't even really need to do this, but I did want to use a programmable to figure out what the query was. And this was actually really just simple. I actually just added a parameter that allows a marketer who's configuring this to use whatever query they want. If you look in advanced mode, programmable is just a piece of JavaScript that runs to return a value, and then you can use that value to do what you want with it. So I'm just returning this parameter, which I'm calling query, which is a string and defaults to search term, right? All right. And then we pass that to this connection. And I'll show you how we actually create these with the visual canvas in a second. But in this, we're just mapping the request inputs and actually hard code the limit to 3 and query. I'm passing that programmable query. And we can actually either test the connection, but what I probably want to do is test the whole canvas. And I could just use a person. And if we test the canvas, there's no offers returned because this is a very simple one. But if I look at the full response and I can look through, we see our content, which is the search results. So this is a very simple decision model. That's all it's doing is calling the connection and getting those search results. And it's actually really quick. It's only 71 milliseconds. So it doesn't add a lot of latency. Just shows that Sitecore Search is a good tool to use for something like this. All right, so now that we have a decision model, really the next step is to build an experience. So let me close out of this. So let's go to the web experiences. So I have a search-driven experience here. So when you build your experiences, you're going to want to go to decisioning and select the model that you want to go do, right? So I'm not going to edit it, but it's plugged in right there. What this means is this thing is executed and made available to your experiences itself, right? So if I go to here, it's actually, I didn't include any CSS in it, and I could have to just styling it, but just if I go to advanced edit, you could see just a couple of things, right? I actually built this with the intention of injecting into the homepage of Perficient.com, and I think I will be able to demo this to you in a second, but hopefully the demo gods work for me. But you can see really it's just iterating through widgets and content with an each loop, and then it's binding the URL name and description of the search results. Now, I will say that in order to get that, we have to use the API tab and use free marker to get the results of the decision model and basically unwind the object to get at the inner part so that we can output it to JSON. Now, by default, anything that I showed you in that decision model test tool isn't available on that HTML tab to handlebars unless you make it available as JSON here. And what you're going to want to do is build your JSON object however you want, but you're going to want to test it. And you want to click the preview API. And again, send a request. And you're going to see this is what's outputted on the API tab. And this is what's available to the HTML tab that you actually can bind. So we started with widgets. We started with content. And the reason I kept widgets in is because I just couldn't get it to work without doing that. I was getting errors in JavaScript. I did the best I can. There might be a better way to just get at the content, but I called it a win that I got this working. So if we go to the HTML tab, you can see that this is binding to that. And to show you that it actually works, I do have a test server running a test version of my site, not running on Sitecore, just as kind of a simple HTTPS service. And we can just preview it. It should take a second. And if I scroll down, we get this generic section that didn't exist before that came right from it. And I probably should have either truncated the first record or did something in the query to limit the records I got back. The other thing I'll note is, I mean, the Sitecore Personalize QA tool is actually really good. You actually can validate looking at the API response. This is the same thing that I showed you with the API tester. So this shows you what it's binding to, so you could see things match up properly, that you're using the right fields and things like that. Okay. All right, so that was a very simple example, but like in reality, you're not going to want to share the same query results or run the same query for every user. That's how this can get really, really powerful. So I actually have a tool that I wrote to make it easier to model things. But before I show you that, let me show you what a typical content-driven decision model looks like, so you can kind of see where I'm going with this. All right. Let's get out of there. All right. So I have a few sample decision models. Let's go with this. So a typical decision model looks something like this. All right. We want to have access to our guest data. We want to have access to our session data. We want to write some JavaScript to figure out, based on this data, what we think they should do. And we usually return some sort of code, and then we go to a decision table. We allow our marketers to go in here and kind of match the codes to the content offers that they want to go have. Right. This was more healthcare related, so these were returning different things that we may want them to do, and we want to map them to an offer. And offers are basically pieces of content that have a bunch of data. I can show you what an offer looks like in a little bit, but let me finish here before I do that. So this JavaScript is actually just sample JavaScript. This doesn't fully work, but just gives you an idea. It's basically a bunch of if statements. You decide the order of the if statements you want them to run, and in the end, you have to go figure out how to evaluate them. It could be looping through the guest. It could be looping through the sessions, or looping through the events or their orders. And there's a lot of work to go do and figure that out. And what makes this hard is just sitting down and because it's wide open and you can do anything that you want, it's hard to know where to start and how to have that conversation with the business to get the requirements properly. And we could do something like this for search too. Imagine instead of returning a name, we were returning the search query that we wanted to run. And that's exactly what I'm going to show you. But instead, I actually mapped the queries in the decision table. But before I go to that, let me go to offers just to show you. So offer and offer templates are usually what you end up returning. So an offer template is just, you just go into one. It's just a set of attributes, and we can add as many as we want, and it's like we're defining a content template. And then our offer library itself is just the content that comes up with it, right? So your marketers can come in here and customize what they want, and then they can return the offer that they want in their decision model. And we could use these attributes the same way we use the attributes from the search results. Now, I wanted to make it a little bit easier. So I actually built a tool that allows us to model maps, and I did it in Sitecore, and this is actually running in XM Cloud. But let me jump to the visual view just to talk you through what I actually did here. So how I wanted to think about this is I originally was thinking of this more in terms of journey stages, like from consideration, awareness, all the way to purchase and loyalty. But also thinking just in terms of personas and how we want to address the types of offers and the next best action we want to do with people. So this is one I actually built for Perficient.com. I mean, we are a consultancy. It's kind of interesting that we have these industry focuses for things like automotive, financial services, healthcare, manufacturing. There's actually a few more. I just wanted to keep this simple for the demo. But then across that, we do strategy and transformation, CX and digital marketing, innovation, product development, platforms and technology, and data intelligence, right? And we do that across all these industries. So if I think in terms of how I'd want to personalize on Perficient.com, I probably want to use the cross section of those things to go do that. So what I've done is I've defined offers for each of those cross sections, and I've put requirements or restrictions which allow me to tell me when I can or should not show those offers to visitors. And I've built it so that it automatically generates the JavaScript for my programmable. Now, you do have to define what these functions are. In a lot of cases, these are actually just going through the guest data extensions and getting a value of persona or a value of interest. And by default, they return false. Like, I mean, I could show you, I have a bunch of conditions. And of course, I haven't logged in a while, so it's going to reset. That just do that. But this allows us to kind of think through, and I have a bunch of other persona models or journey map models that I could show on another time, or you could reach out to me if you're interested. I've blogged about this in the past. But anyway, I've defined this whole personalization decision model to be somewhat more advanced than the other one. And this is probably going to be closer to how you really would use this. So let me show you the decision model for that. And this is in production. Same deal. I probably, this should have been the session. I'm not really using it, so that's why it's not causing any issues. This is just a copy paste from the tool. And then, oops. And then I want to map the offers to the query. And you could see these are some of the offers. I didn't fill out every single one. I could continue to go in here and add them. And here's the query I want to run, right? So if it comes back financial services, platform and technology, I want to search for financial services guides, right? If it comes back healthcare strategy and transformation, I want to return healthcare case studies, right? So I can go in here and I can kind of define for my different segments, what is the query I want to use to drive the experience that I'm looking to go do. All right, so let's close that. And then similarly, I have an experience. And it's pretty much the same thing. The big difference is it's using this version of the decision model, which is aware of the people I want. Now, in order to do that, I actually had to go configure a couple of test users. And if you are working on this sort of thing, you're going to get very used to Postman. And there is a Sitecore CDP collection that's very useful for doing that. You can create new guests. Guest data extensions is where we're spending a lot of time, and you can see I have interest in persona and things like that. So I went ahead and I configured a couple of test users to use in my tests, so I could show you how this works, right? Same sort of thing. We're going to just go right to the preview. I mean, even the API is exactly the same, but let's impersonate a guest. I actually configured one of my colleagues, Megan Jensen, MJ knows Sitecore. She is interested in healthcare and she's interested in strategy as per how I configured it in CDP. So if I go preview her for that, we can see her recommended reading is all about healthcare. And you can see this is definitely different search results than we saw before. And then instead, what if I wanted it to be my other colleague, Martin Miles, who's interested in platforms and technology, and he's interested in financial services. And you can see his results are all financial services driven. Now, there's probably a ton more I can do here. Adding images to my index would make this look a ton better. Doing things to make sure I maybe had a short description would probably also be really good. But this hopefully gives you an idea of the kinds of things you could do. It doesn't necessarily have to return 3 results. You could return 1 result, right? It could be a card that we're displaying. The more your search tool knows, the more info you have in CDP, the better decisionings and the more accurate queries you can put together to go do that. And that's really all I had. I don't know if I had any more slides. Let me go back to that. All right. So that was the demo. Did anyone have any questions?
Yeah, anybody is welcome to ask a question in the chat. So let's wait a little bit for you to type. Yeah, thanks for the feedback. So what we can do if there is, I don't know if anybody is going to ask a question. So if you are going to just write that, yeah, I have a question, so that we would wait for you to type it. Otherwise, you're very welcome to ask any questions in the comments to this video, because of course, as soon as the stream ends, you will be able to access this video and leave comments to it. And then I will give a signal to David that there is a question, and I will post an answer to that. So I hope that sounds good. So yeah, Martin has a question. So could you please once again summarize at the very high level the play over the involved parts?
Sure. So, I mean, it starts with Sitecore search and making sure your index has the data you want in the form that you want. Creating a widget or a variation of your widget that boosts the right results, that has the right context of what you're looking to do. And then making sure you have an API key and you kind of craft the query that you want to call from Sitecore Personalize. Now, once you do that, then you're going to want to come in and define a connection. So connections are under developer tools, and that's where you're going to define the headers and the payload, test your connection to make sure it's returning results from Sitecore search. You're going to want to parameterize it so that you can run different queries based on the context that you want to be able to do, and not create a bunch of hard-coded queries, right? Then you're going to want to create a decision model. And the decision model can be whatever logic you want to determine what that query should be. I showed you a simple one that just made it a parameter that a marketer could type. And then I showed you one that used a more complex persona-based model to kind of determine what persona and what interest they had before figuring out what the query was, that I actually had my own custom tool for. But once you have that decision model that is determining what to run and calling the connection and returning the results, then you can go create an experience. Now, I did show a couple of different web experiences that were all set up with my testperficient.com website, but you could just as easily use this from a triggered experience or an interactive experience. So a triggered experience would be something that you would call a webhook, like if you want to send an email or an SMS text message, you could do that. And as part of the JSON that you're posting to those endpoints, you'd be able to leverage the same search results as part of that. An interactive experiment or experience would be if you're exposing an API that somebody else is calling to get that personalized content. So hopefully that gives you a kind of an overview where all the pieces are and how they connect together. And that's another thing with experimentation, right? So you can not only create experiments with different variants, displaying the content in different ways, but you actually can even experiment with your decision model. So if you have different logic on how you select the query and what you put in that decision table, you can test them against each other.
Perfect. Thank you very much, David. I think that it's also a great summary because I think just to sum up what we have seen, and I personally think it's impressive, and I think it opens a world of opportunities to many people because sometimes you don't think of the exact order that you have to follow, that it's actually that I would not say simple, but it's doable. It's doable, and there is a lot of room for imagination there as well. So that's really nice.
Yeah, and I mean another thing I'll add is this lends itself to being put on autopilot, right? Because as you continue to add content, your search results are going to change, and the best content's going to move to the top. So, like unlike other ones where you have to have someone manually going in and updating the offers or updating the content and the experiences themselves, you can kind of set this up and let it run pretty much indefinitely.
Yeah, yeah, that's really cool. That's really cool. Thanks a lot, David, for this presentation. And we actually are opening a personalization month in a way because next week we are going to have a presentation also about Personalize. And also in the end of December, we are also going to have a tips and tricks presentation about Personalize and also, yeah, combination with XM Cloud. So there will be a lot of exciting talks in the future as well. And David, also, if you ever want to participate again, we will be super happy to have you. And I wish everybody a great experience with the Sitecore, and we are going to have a lot of interesting things together.
Thank you.